Hey everyone, welcome back to the feature branch. Now today we're going to be talking about two slash commands in the GitHub Copilot app. Now I believe that these are only located there. I can't seem to find too much information about these commands in general. I saw a post on X where someone was talking about slash orchestrate and spawn, and I thought, hey, I've never seen these before. And to be quite honest, I couldn't find an announcement on them either. And so I went back into the change logs and I did find this information. So I went to the GitHub Copilot app, looked up orchestrate, and I see that it was added actually pre-GA, and this was on June 15th, 2026. And as you can see, the slash orchestrate command is a composer command for coordinating multi-session and multi-repo work, letting the agent delegate tasks across child sessions, which sounds pretty awesome to be quite honest. And then if I look up spawn, honestly, there's no slash command. There are some descriptions about it, but really nothing too specific. So I went in and tried to dive a little bit deeper, learned a bit about it myself, and then I'm going to be sharing with you today. Now, I was not able to find it in the docs either or anywhere else, so please be advised that this is just me playing around with it, but I think that this is still so awesome that it was worth a video, and I think it's something that you all should definitely check out. So without further ado, let's get started. So let's start with what spawn is, because these are two commands that I believe are tightly correlated, or at least under the hood, it seems like they should be tightly correlated. And so I'm going to describe what spawn does, and then later on show how it correlates with the orchestrator. So this is a chat that I have currently in my Milefolio project. As you can see, I'm trying to work on a new feature to show the not only the airline alliances, but also if an airline or hotel can have your points transferred from a transferable program. And so I have these two chats and sessions open for that identical initial prompt. In this one, I actually told it to delegate to a sub agent to help me investigate if I have all the transferable points programs implemented already. And so as you can see, it thought a little bit, ensured that it wanted to delegate to a sub agent, and then actually delegated it here, as you can see, to a research agent. When I click this right-hand pane opens up, and you can see that it actually gives it the prompt for those sub agents, or the sub agent. Now, while this is running, the reason why I'm talking about sub agents is because there's a close correlation between spawning and sub agents. So if I do a slash spawn, you'll see it mentions spin up one nested child session for a focused task. Now this kind of sounds like sub agent, but the big difference here is that a sub session allows me to actually steer it. As you can see here, sub agents, whenever you're normally working on it, they just do their thing and then report back to the agent that called the sub agent. So I'm going to do it right here. So I'm going to copy this part, the help me investigate. We are here where we are also trying to implement the same change. But instead, I'm going to say spawn, and I should see it spawn up a new session underneath, almost like a work tree. And so what's great about this is that we'll have a new session. The idea is still the same, right? You're creating another sub agent or session in this case to perform a task and then relay that information back to you. And this is great so that you don't muddle the context, and especially if you're trying to do multiple things. And what's great about the sub session though, or the child session, is that I can now, ooh, there we go, it just popped up. I can now see what it's doing, right? It's doing that same very similar prompt that we saw the sub agent do, but guess what? I can actually steer this one. So I can, if I see it doing something, I can actually type in and be like, hey, no, this is the wrong direction, etc. Right? And so I can actually steer where this, I'm doing air quotes sub agent, or in this case, we're going to call it a session, is doing. child session. And so really that's where the value comes in. And I imagine that this is only in the GitHub Copilot app because you kind of get to see and visualize some of this. I'm guessing that it might be difficult to, or at least harder to visualize if you were on the CLI, for example. But maybe they'll do something in the future. We'll see. So that's what the slash spawn does in that example. So now taking a step even higher, we have slash orchestrate. And I'm going to show you the description here, coordinating work across sessions and repos. So now we're talking about multiple sessions or even potentially multiple repos. So here I have an example here where I have a plan already created to take my Milefolio app and split it up into um, three repositories. The reasoning for this is just like an example, a demo to show like, hey, what if we had like a three-tier architecture where you got a front end, a back end, and a database as well. So as you can see, I am in the Milefolio project, but if I went orchestrate, let's see, let's implement this plan. I have already to split the content into Milefolio 3T backend, front end, and Milefolio database. Please implement the changes into each respective for each tier. All right, so now that I do this, it should be orchestrating. So what we should see is actually three sessions, one on each repo, pop up. And so the idea here is that, you know, let's imagine that you had multiple changes, or actually even one change that span across multiple repositories. You know, when we think about microservices, that could be a scenario, or maybe even two repositories, right? You know, a change in the front end and the back end, and maybe they're split into different repositories there. This allows you to orchestrate that change across those repositories. Whereas in the past, you know, the GitHub Copilot app or in the CLI or in VS Code, you might have had to have multiple windows open or multiple sessions open, and coordinating those changes, bringing those contexts back and forth. This allows you to do it from one location. So in this case, I am kicking it off here, and it could have been anywhere to be honest, but I've already planned it in the Milefolio repo. It is then going to, in this case, it looks, it already found all the repo. It's going to read all the source files and then kick off the prompts. It'll then kick off the sessions into each one of these so that you can make the changes all at once, coordinate them so that it all works out, and then being able to work from there. While we wait for this, another thing that I do want to mention is that, you know, we've been talking about multi-repo this whole time, but you can also do it in a single repo. So here's an example here where I have feature brainstorm. And as you can see, I kicked this off earlier to say, hey, let's orchestrate and help me brainstorm some new ideas that we can build out for this application. And so it came out and spawned off 4 sessions for each one of these: goals and awards, trips and passports, card pipeline, history enhancement. And you can see that these were all sessions here. So as you can see, you can have an orchestrator work on multiple changes within a single repo as well. So don't think of it as, oh, this is only a multi-repo thing. This is a way to just orchestrate multiple changes to fulfill one larger goal. And this is also a great way to break things down, right? Smaller changes are absolutely better than one massive PR. And so this is another way to kind of visualize or at least work through it. Another thing that I did notice is that you can, what's the best way to say this? You can nest orchestrations. I'm not sure if this is their intention, and it's probably not best practice, but I was just curious and seeing. And so you absolutely can nest this as well, because I went down here to the goals and rewards, and I said, hey, look, I like your three ideas. It came back with three awesome ideas. Yeah, orchestrate. I did slash orchestrate. I like your ideas. Give me a deeper research on that. And so it did. And then I went deeper again. And so as you can see, you can kind of continuously nest these. And so probably not the best practice, to be honest, but I'm just curious about, what is possible. And at that point in time, that, at this current time, you can do that. Now, I will say that one thing that I have noticed is that it only reports back up one. So for example, when you make changes on your sessions, your sub sessions, those do report back to the orchestrator, but if you're nesting these orchestrators, they don't go all the way back to the top. Again, I don't think I'm using it the way it was intended, but it is an observation that I am noticing. Another thing that I do notice is that if you go into one of these sub sessions and then start asking it, hey, can you share your information with another session? Um, it seems to treat the initial request as if you're the orchestrator, and then going from there. It doesn't report back to the original orchestrator, if you understand what I mean. So using this as an example, if I used the gap tracker and told it, hey, send your information to expiry alert, it will do that. The expiry alert will then report back to the gap tracker, but then the gap tracker doesn't consistently report back to the sweet spot library deep research. And so that's kind of an example there as well. So that's what we've seen there. Let's go back to the original one here where we do have the new feature. And it looks like it did delegate to 2 sessions here. It seems like, though, it only opened one on the database tier, as you can see here. And then the back end, I need to see why. Spawning a root transfer. Maybe I was trying to keep the front end here. Are abandoning, oops. Please, the, oh, never mind. I didn't even say it. Looks like it was still figuring it out. This right here has a work in progress. So I jumped the gun. But yes, as you can see, all of these are now in progress. I can see what their progress is happening. I can then come back to this main orchestrator and we can see like, hey, what are actually the changes being made? I can just review here if I just want to see the overarching changes that are happening. Or if I want to see exactly what's going on each one, I can go to each sub session as well, steering them if I need to, or just letting them run and then having them get all the information there. All right, so I just did a little bit of a time skip so that you don't have to see everything running. But as you can see here, all of the sessions have completed. The orchestrator has also reported back that all 3 sessions have completed. Here are the results. Here's how you can run the application as well. I even added a bit of a curveball or a change on the database tier. So I came in here and mentioned that, hey, let's review our options and deploy to a NoSQL database. And we decided on Mongo. And here, it actually made the change. Just like I mentioned earlier, when you start on some of the lower sessions, you do need to nudge it a little bit to send it back to the orchestrator. And so that's something that I had to do here, where I said, hey, share this back with the orchestrator. And I need to remind myself to include it as part of the prompt there. Now, this is only for changes. The initial orchestration, of course, works just fine. And then back here to kind of show what happened, it was like, hey, heads up, database tier session went off script and actually added something we weren't expecting. And then once I confirmed that this is what we do want to do, it did send a new message to the backend tier and said, hey, let's make sure that this is actually compatible. So it did help with the orchestration again once it recognized that there was a change. So at the end of the day, I think this is a fantastic feature. I really love the Orchestrate. I plan on using it more and more on my day-to-day, absolutely. And let me know what you think. Let me know if you've been using it already and put it in the comments there so we can definitely share more about what we can do with Orchestrate as well. As always, if you loved this episode or if you're interested in seeing more new features, please subscribe. Thanks, everyone.